So, welcome to the deep dive. You gave us a really fascinating stack of source material this week, and it was wide-ranging.
For real was.
We're covering everything from college football to philosophy, but it all centered on this really coherent theme: the nature of identity, performance, and courage.
Right.
And most of these insights, they're drawn from Matthew McConaughey's reflections, and they all kind of tie back to the wisdom in his book, Poems and Prayers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And our mission here really is to take these very personal, anecdotal stories and turn them into actionable insights for you. We need to pull out the core wisdom on what it means to lead, how modern identity is being sort of fractured by digital life, and how to even define courage, blending his colorful experiences with real psychological concepts.
And we absolutely have to start with just the sheer unfiltered energy of his youth. The sources paint this vivid picture of his connections to Louisiana Morgan City Park.
All right.
And then we land squarely in the chaos of professional wrestling at Hearst Coliseum. And this is where we see the early development of what he calls, non-negotiable action.
Indeed. I mean, you get this great image of him as this passionate, maybe slightly unhinged kid, and he admits he got kicked out of the Coliseum twice in one night.
Twice.
That takes a level of commitment to being a menace that's almost...
Admirable. Absolutely. First offense, spinning a loogie on King Kong Bundy as he walked to the ring.
just pure fan dedication, raw.
But the second one is the kicker. And it's why it's such a perfect launching point for this whole discussion on commitment.
Right.
After getting ejected, he sneaks back in through a bathroom window, having already stashed a paper bag full of rotten tomatoes.
You pre-stashed them.
He did. And then he just starts launching them at the heel Skander Akbar from the upper stands.
How?
That wasn't an impulse.
No, not at all. That was a premeditated, two-act structure of vengeance.
It's magnificent in its strangeness, and it just captures a time where passion felt totally unfiltered. But the question is, what happens to that raw energy when we apply it to modern life?
Exactly.
That raw, unfiltered action. It's the thread that leads us directly to the daredevil Knievel and a really fascinating critique of our digital performance culture.
Knievel is a phenomenal touchstone here because his whole philosophy speaks directly to the internal pursuit of action, which is so different from how we seek validation today.
Right.
Knievel famously did not have a death wish. He said he had a profound life wish.
A life wish.
Yeah, he needed to jump because he needed to, in his words, sweat in his boots.
And the deeply surprising psychological insight from that story is that when he put his hands on the handlebars, when the danger was right there, his pulse actually went down.
Wow.
The danger gave him structure and clarity. It was the everyday life outside of the danger that was the real source of his anxiety. He needed that existential reckoning.
That's the key, that feeling of meeting existence right there, in the air, without any mediation. This also explains the infamous Caesar's Palace jump. I mean, he didn't wait for permission.
Not at all. He created the demand. He called the head of Caesars 3 times using fake names, Bobby Bernstein and Bob Knight.
Love that.
Claiming to be a producer from ABC-wide World of Sports, just confirming the jump that was supposedly already scheduled. He manufactured the reality.
He forced their hand. That's audacity.
But the sources, they note this profound shift that starts later in Knievel's career, and it carries right through to today.
Yeah, this is important.
Initially, the audience came to see him make the jump. They were invested in his success.
Right.
But by the end, they were coming specifically for the wreck.
And they leave disappointed if he landed safely.
Exactly. That desire for the spectacle, for the crash.
Yeah.
It perfectly anticipates the digital validation loop we all live in today. You shared a reference study that tracks this critical shift in human reward systems.
This is maybe the most important psychological nugget in the whole deep dive. Researchers found that the biggest scientific dopamine hit used to be the doing of the deed.
Just the accomplishment itself, cresting the mountain, Knievel hitting the ramp.
Exactly. Then it shifted. The biggest hit became the recording of the moment.
The snapshot, the ownership of the achievement. It was still about me, but filtered.
Yes. And now, today, critically, the apex of the rush is when we press share. The maximum dopamine release isn't the action or the ownership. It's the moment of external validation, that expectation of the likes and the feedback.
But if the peak rush is external, how do we gauge genuine long-term success? I mean, is it even possible to feel satisfied? Because that immediate gratification is so addictive, but it's it's ultimately hollow.
It creates a crisis of identity. As McConaughey noted, this forces people to constantly live in third person or as a viewer of myself.
A viewer of myself.
Your identity is constantly being defined by these objective external standards. What did you think of what I did? Did I perform well for the camera?
And that's the slippery slope, right? You're losing yourself in the noise of the crowd, performing for an external judge. This is why his sponsor gave him that powerful mantra. You're not who they think you are. And then the second part, which is more subtle, you're not who you think they think you are.
That helps cut through the noise of the Jumbotron. It forces you to reclaim the subjective I, because when the rush is the sharing, you're always calculating your performance based on how you think people will react.
You lose touch with the internal truth.
Exactly, and your own preparation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's take that idea of constant performance, internal and external, into the world of coaching and team psychology.
Good idea.
This external validation problem must be why we see coaches who aggressively try to remove all noise from their players' wives.
Oh, absolutely. Leadership styles are directly tied to managing that internal-external tension. You have the colorful, frank communicators, Jim Moore yelling, "We got our ass kicked," or Mike Leach, God rest his soul, talking about failure to be more compelling than their players' fat little girlfriends. That style is cathartic, it's high energy, it's very open.
But it can also be unstable. Then you have the other end of the spectrum, the stoic, internal coaches. They believe that stability comes from absolute structural rigidity.
Remove all color commentary.
Think of Bill Belichick's "do your job" mantra,
Yeah.
or Popovich cutting off reporters.
The goal of that stoic coach is to create psychological safety through structure. If the external world is chaos, social media, recruiting, whatever, the structure of the team has to be relentlessly stable.
It's a non-negotiable brand of football.
Exactly. It's consistent regardless of the noise or who's plugged into the system. It's all about creating a unified us that just ignores the them.
And yet we're seeing a modern evolution, too. You have someone like Lane Kiffin who recognizes that, modern players live in the noise. You can't seal them off.
You really can't.
So when job rumors circulate, he brings that noise right into the team room, acknowledges it, and says, this is happening because we're winning. He's treating them like adults who have to navigate this new reality.
But here's the enduring challenge. Even with perfect coaching, legendary Texas coach Darrell K. Royal once said that a team can only reach its maximum potential on about 3 to 4 Saturdays a season.
Only 3 or 4. That suggests that the ability to perform at peak is just this massive psychological black hole that coaches are constantly trying to figure out.
They're always adjusting the mindset. Exactly. Sometimes you have to build confidence from the ground up, maybe after a tough loss.
Right.
Where the coach has to actively celebrate the small wins like Mac Brown applauding a mere 2-yard completion just to build some momentum, some belief.
And then other times, when a team has too much talent, too much confidence, the coach needs to get them to feel like an underdog against themselves.
To fight complacency. The battle isn't the opponent. The battle is achieving their own massive potential.
Right. And we can't overlook the role of identity here, particularly SEC tribalism.
Oh, yeah.
These teams fight rabidly on the field, but when an SEC team beats an outside conference opponent, what do the fans chant?
SEC.
Exactly. That collective identity, that belief in the group brand, is a profound psychological force.
It really is.
Okay, shifting from team psychology to personal philosophy. Let's focus on a couple of core concepts that always seem to get muddled: ego and humility.
Yeah, and McConaughey argued that ego has gotten a really undeservedly bad rap. He makes this crucial distinction between a healthy ego and an unhealthy ego.
Okay, so healthy ego is confidence derived from the subjective I.
Right.
What does that look like? Give us a concrete example of that subjective I.
It's the confidence that comes from your internal preparation. It's, I have trained for this moment, I am prepared, I have the ability.
Okay.
Unhealthy ego, on the other hand, is the objective me. That's when you're looking at the Jumbotron for validation, defining yourself based on applause.
I see.
If you trained hard, you have the subjective I. If you're anxiously checking reviews after the performance is over, you're stuck in the objective me.
That makes it so actionable. And the redefinition of humility he found, that's an even bigger revelation. He struggled for years with the traditional definition, which felt like, cowering or false modesty.
Which, as he put it, is often just cocky in reverse.
Right.
The definition that liberated him at age 45 was this: humility is simply admitting that we have more to learn.
Okay, so how does that change your posture? If I view humility as admitting I have more to learn, what am I now doing that I wasn't doing before?
You move from a passive position to an active affirmative one. It lets you approach the world with your shoulders back and your head high, but you're actively seeking out mentors, asking questions, being receptive to new information.
So you're graceful, but you're still moving forward.
Relentlessly. It's the embrace of perpetual studenthood.
Okay, so let's take that renewed confidence and apply it to courage. He defines courage so simply as one more step in the right direction. But taking that step requires accurate fear measurement.
That's right. You have to distinguish between bad fear and healthy fear. Bad fear is internal. It's rooted in personal doubt. Healthy fear is external and rooted in sound judgment.
Can you give us a couple of simple scenarios? How can you apply that to your own decision-making?
Sure. If you are afraid to ask for a well-deserved raise because you fundamentally doubt your own value, that's bad fear. That stems from an internal insecurity that you need courage to overcome. Conversely, if you're afraid to invest your life savings in a new business because the balance sheet is poor, the management is chaotic, that's healthy fear.
That's just sound judgment.
It's sound judgment protecting you from an external rational risk. You need courage to dive into the first kind of fear, but the wisdom to avoid the second.
This all rolls up into the conclusion, the necessity of anchoring yourself in life's non-negotiable projects.
Yes.
These are the things you can always focus on when you feel, as he says, lost and wobbly.
And for him, that non-negotiable was always fatherhood. He knew since he was 8 years old that this was his primary metric of a successful life.
After realizing all the men his father introduced him to, the ones he called sir, were fathers.
Exactly. And once you define that project, you have to maintain the structure. He talks about how he and his wife, Camila, established rituals like the around-the-horn gratitude sharing before dinner.
A small, consistent ritual.
It fuels conversation and connection. And he uses that powerful metaphor of the family being a bonfire, not a campfire.
A campfire burns out quickly.
Right. A bonfire is a non-negotiable project, but the children are responsible for chopping wood, too. It's a team effort. It requires investment from everyone, not just the adults.
Let's spend a little time now on the philosophical anchor of this whole deep dive because I think it's so important. The difference between a transactional and a transformational life.
It's huge. A purely transactional life only, seeking things that pay the bank account, that are quantifiable. He argues that leads to dying all the way.
Dying all.
You end up completely dead at the end, having only accumulated transient value.
But transformation, that requires a different kind of investment. It requires sacrifice, or what he calls dying a little.
Yeah.
What does that sacrifice look like in a real-world, non-spiritual sense?
It looks like trading short-term comfort for long-term meaning. It's sacrificing the immediate financial security of a job you don't love to invest time in a legacy project.
Right.
It's choosing to invest emotional energy into raising responsible children, even when the easier transaction would be to just delegate or ignore.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing a piece of your current comfort to live forever, whether that's through lineage, legacy, or spiritual growth.
That ties directly into his definition of prayer, which is also an action. He defines prayer as worship, which literally means to bow down.
Putting the heart above the head.
It's the conscious act of silencing the rational, transactional mind.
Exactly. He calls it an engineered act. We are constantly running the logic of the head, the budget, the worries, the to-do list, the fear. And we need that for survival.
Of course.
But that logic can drown out the deeper truths. The act of bowing down is intentionally bypassing that logical processor to listen to the sacred within. Compassion, peace, kindness, the language that defies the balance sheet.
We have covered a huge distance today. I mean, from rotten tomatoes at a wrestling ring and the subjective eye of healthy ego to the critical digital shift in identity and the cost of a transactional life. We've really distilled those core truths from your sources.
And I think the overarching takeaway is the value of defining your own non-negotiable truths. When you're feeling lost and wobbly, or when the external world is just screaming for your attention and validation.
Yeah.
Having those fixed points like family, or the humility to keep learning, or the courage to take just one more step, that allows you to reset your compass away from all that digital noise.
And that leads us to the final provocative thought, which is built on this tension between private truth and public performance.
Right.
McConaughey referenced the idea from Emerson that truth comes to us most clearly in quiet solitude. The real challenge for the modern person isn't finding that truth. It's taking that non-negotiable truth back out amongst the masses.
Back into the stadium or the digital world.
Exactly. So the question for you is, What private conviction, realized in solitude, can you confidently hold on to when you're surrounded by the chaos and noise of the public sphere without needing that external validation?